We're talking about section 5.2 in the pre-calculus textbook, sum and difference formulas. Cosine of A plus B is going to be cosine A, cosine B, the opposite sign, then sine A, sine B. Just like the next one is also cosine, so it goes cosine, cosine, opposite sign, sine, sine. To me, that's one of those are a little bit easier to remember than the sines or the tangents. The sine is sine A, cosine B, but you use the same sign, so this would be a plus, cosine A times sine of B. In other words, just the other way around. Okay, for sine A minus B, it's very similar. It's still sine A cosine B. The same sign, the other way around, cosine A times the sine of B. So that's the sum or difference formulas for sine and cosine. Those are going to be probably the more common ones. If you have tangent, it's going to of A plus B is going to be tangent of A, same sign, plus tangent of B, divided by 1 minus tangent of A times the tangent of B. The other one is the same thing, like I said, tangent A, same sign, tangent B, divided by 1 minus the product or multiplication of tangent A times the tangent of B. And these should be the formulas. Again, I think they're summarized on page 636 at the bottom and page 640. So these are on page 636, and page 640 is where you'll find these. Now I'm going to do an example of at least one or two of the types. Okay, we're going to use these formulas to answer some questions on some examples, then get into the actual assignment. I want to know the sine of 7/12 pi. 7/12 pi is not on your trig table. So you have to find some way of creating something that is. What is 3/12 plus 4/12? Would that be 7/12? Well, what is 3/12 simplify to give me? And what's 4/12 simplify? So in other words, could this be called the sine of pi over 4 plus pi over 3? Because pi over 4 plus pi over 3 is 7 pi over 12. Now we're going to fill in the rule here. The rule for, I'll do it right underneath it, sine of A plus B is going to be sine A cosine B, the same sign, so it's plus, the other way around, cosine A, sine B. So let's fill this in. Sine of what angle? What is A? Pi over 4. Cosine, what is angle B? Pi over 3. Plus is there. Then I have cosine of what angle? What is A? Pi over 4. And what is B? Pi over 3. So we need to fill these in. Sine of pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2. Cosine of pi over 3. Anybody know it? I think it's radical 3 over 2. Cosine of pi over 4 is the same as sine of pi over 4. They're both radical 2 over 2. Sine of pi over 3 is radical 3 over 2. So let's check these values first. Yeah, there is no way that sine of pi over 3 and cosine of pi over 3 are the same. So one of those is wrong. Cosine of pi over 3 is not this. Cosine of pi over 3, I believe, is 1/2. So when we multiply these, top times top, bottom times bottom, top times top, bottom times bottom, I believe these could be written as a single fraction as they have a common denominator. So this should be the answer for example 4. Okay, this was an example of a sum using the sign. I think we're going to jump right into the assignment. The assignment's going to be 5-2, 1 to 41 odds. I'm going to do a hodgepodge of these. They give you cosine of 45 degrees minus 30 degrees, which would be cosine of 50. Could this be written as cosine A minus B? If so, I know it'd be cosine A, cosine B, the opposite sign, sine A, sine B. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill this in. Cosine, cosine, plus sine, sine. What is angle A? 45 degrees. So I put 45 degrees. Angle B is 30 degrees. I know that the sine and cosine of 45 are the same. They're radical 2 over 2's. I know the sine of 30 is 1/2, and the cosine of 30 then would be radical 3 over 2. So you get radical 6 over 4 plus radical 2 over 4, which you could write as a single fraction. I believe this is the same answer we just got on an example, but that example was involving sine. This one has a cosine.
What's the 15 have to do with anything?
On this next one, I need to know if this is cosine A, cosine B, and it's a plus, sine A, sine B. Can you identify which of these matches that? Again, it's cosine, cosine, sine, sine with a plus. Cosine, cosine, sine, sine with a plus. Is it this one? I think it is. So now that I have identified it to use this formula, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll go back to my problem, and I know that this is cosine, cosine, so that tells me that this is a cosine. As a matter of fact, the rule for this one would be cosine of what? A minus B. So I have the cosine of, what's A? 50 minus what's B? 20. So what's that make this? A cosine of 30, which we know is radical 3 over 2. Okay, after 5, let's try this one. Do we know a rule for sine A minus sine B? Sine of A minus B, that is. I'm going to check. I believe it's sine A, cosine B, the same sign. Sine of B, cosine of A. Sine of B, cosine of A. Let me check it real fast, but I'm pretty sure that's it. Sine minus, same sign, cosine of B, yes. I just have it written the other order, but it is equivalent. It's the same thing. They have it as sine A, cosine B, minus cosine A, sine B, but that's the same thing. So how would this be written? Sine of 45 degrees, cosine of 30 degrees. Sine of 30 degrees, cosine of 45 degrees. Again, 45 degrees is relatively easy. It's radical 2 over 2, whether it's sine or cosine. Sine of 30 degrees is 1/2, making cosine of 30 degrees radical 3 over 2. So you get radical 6 over 4 minus radical 2 over 4. written as a single fraction, because we do have a common denominator of 4, would be this. Let's see if we can find the rule for this on 25. Sine then cosine. Sine then cosine, I believe, makes this into a sine. And because it's a sine, I think I use the same sign, so I think it's a plus. Can anybody verify that this would be the right one? We can go back and look at them if you need to. I think I had a sine with a plus, right? Sine with a plus. So hopefully it's this one here. So I need what? The sine of, what's A, plus what's B, turning it into the sine of 30 degrees, which is radical, no it's not, sine of 30 degrees would be 1/2. Okay, after 25, we're going to attempt to verify 33. I'm going to use the same identity. Okay, I'm going to use the same identity that I think I was using before. Do I know what sine of A plus B is? Well, it would be sine A, cosine B, same sign, so it's a plus, then the other way around. Sine of B, cosine of A. So I'm going to fill this in. Sine, cosine, plus sine, cosine. What is the A in this case? Would the A be X? So wherever I see an A, I put an X. What is B? Pi over 2. So wherever I see the B, I put pi over 2. Where is pi over 2 on the unit circle? It's up at the top. What are its coordinates? 0, 1. Alphabetical, cosine, sine. So what's a cosine of pi over 2 would be? 0. Sine x times 0 is 0. The sine of pi over 2 is 1 times cosine. So I have 0 plus cosine, and I think we just verified our even-odd identity. Remember how you had to remember these as even and odd? Now you don't necessarily have to remember them. You can derive them if you like. These are called the cofunction identities. So sine became cosine. If it was cosine, it would have became sine. If it was tangent, it would have became cotangent, and so on. If you look at 3, it's a cosine of something minus something. That makes it cosine of A, cosine of B, the opposite, so it's plus sine A times sine of B. So let's fill this in. Cosine, cosine, plus sine, sine. What do I put in place of A, or alpha? 3 pi over 4. And how about the B? The B is pi over 6. Okay, I'm going to continue this.
For the following 10th graders,
This would be radical 2 over 2, but because it's in the second quadrant,
Ariana Dennis,
reference angle is pi over 4,
Java Anna Varjanov.
makes it radical 2 over 2.
Pick up your prize.
In this quadrant, it's
We look
negative
forward to your
positive,
support.
cosine, sine.
Next year.
So this
Thank
cosine should be a negative. Now I have cosine of pi over 6, which I think is radical 3 over 2, because the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. And this is sine would be radical 2 over 2, but in this quadrant the sign is positive. So it appears to be negative radical 6 over 4 plus radical 2 over 4. writing them as a same fraction, you'd have radical 2 minus radical 6, the whole thing over 4. Anyway, I hope these help. Good luck.